why the narcissist leaves property with you. It is a relatively common occurrence that the narcissist leaves something behind with you. It might be a jumper. It might be some toiletries. It might be a speedboat in the backyard. It doesn't really matter particularly what it is, but the question arises, why does the narcissist do this? To understand the answers to this question, it is important to recognize that there is a division between what an unaware narcissist, i.e. lesser or mid-range, would do, and that which a conscious narcissist, greater or ultra, would do. There are important differences between the two, which results in a different outcome. Let us begin, first of all, with the conscious narcissist, the much rarer, greater and ultra narcissists. These narcissists operate through conscious calculation, planning, premeditation, looking ahead. These narcissists need to assert control in the moment, but are thinking ahead as to the ramifications of that action, thinking about asserting control in the future and how may that be achieved. These types of narcissists have evolved in a different way, have a very high cognitive function, and have access to resource which enables this Machiavellian behavior to be implemented, and in an effective way. Where a greater or ultra narcissist happens to leave an item of property with you, this is first of all done out of a sense of entitlement to leave something with you, and the purpose of doing so is twofold. First of all, it is to create control in the moment by, for instance, saying, "Here, I'm going to be away for a while. Why don't you keep one of my jumpers? It has my scent on it, so you'll be able to think about me." The recipient says, "Oh, thank you. That's really sweet of you." In that instant, the narcissist has asserted control and has received fuel. However, that greater or ultra narcissist has also done this for two other bases. The creation of ever-presence. Every time now that the victim picks up, looks, touches, smells that item of clothing, they will think of the narcissist, and therefore the greater knows this and will receive a degree of thought fuel appertaining to that act. It also means that this will cause the victim to think about the narcissist, making it easier for that narcissist to maintain control over that victim. It also creates a pretext, if required, for the narcissist at a future point to get in touch. So let us say the jumper has been handed over in the golden period, the shirt has been handed over, whatever it is. And then, of course, devaluation follows and the narcissist disengages. He leaves the jumper behind, doesn't ask for it back. And then, knowing that this jumper had been left there, it allows the greater narcissist or the ultra a pretext on which to hoover. They know they left it behind, and when they did so, that type of narcissist did it knowingly and willingly to A, create control in the moment and draw fuel, B, to create thought fuel in the future, to create ever-presence, and to provide a pretext for hoovering at a future juncture. All at the time the greater or the ultra decided to leave that item of clothing, they intended all of those outcomes. They intended to cause control in the moment and receive fuel. They intended to gather thought fuel in the future. They intended to cause repeated instances of ever-presence in the future. They intended to create a pretext to enable them to hoover in the future by getting in touch and saying, I do believe that I left my golf jumper with you. That is the position for the rare, greater, and ultra. What about the unconscious narcissist, the lesser or the mid-range? The position is different. These individuals, of course, do not know that they are narcissists. When they leave the jumper, it may simply be because they have forgotten about it, because they operate in the moment. And they leave it there because they have a sense of entitlement to cast their possessions all over your property, leave stuff there because it's convenient for them to do so. They have no accountability to, if essentially, tidy up after themselves, remove the items. So the item is left there in the first place, perhaps out of that sense of entitlement, or the lack of accountability for moving the stuff. In other words, laziness. It might be that the narcissist deliberately hands over the clothing in a way similar to that of the greater and says, I'm going to be away, or seeing as you're going to miss me, why don't you take this jumper? It's got my scent on it. When the narcissist who is unconscious does that, he is not thinking, I know, I will leave this jumper behind because then, if I do this, in this moment I'll be able to control them by causing them to think that this is a sweet gesture. No. The unaware narcissist just thinks they're doing something nice because they don't know that they need to control the appliance. They don't know that they need fuel. Their narcissism causes them to believe that they're just doing something pleasant. They don't see that they're being manipulative. They are, of course, being manipulative because their action isn't being governed by any real concern, any genuine thoughtfulness for that victim. Their behaviour is being generated by the pursuit of the prime aims, activated by their narcissism in their unconscious. So, the unaware narcissist may say, here, take my jumper. It'll remind you of me while I'm away. That allows him, driven by his narcissism, to assert control in that moment because the victim says, oh, thank you, that's very sweet of you, and provides some fuel. When he does that, he is not consciously intending to create ever-presence, nor is the narcissism unconsciously intending to create ever-presence. Furthermore, the narcissist is not consciously intending to create a pretext so he can return, nor is he doing so unconsciously. The unaware narcissist that takes this step does so for the purposes of asserting control in the moment only. That is the unconscious step taken by the narcissism when it comes to a lesser or mid-range narcissist. This is because their narcissism isn't thinking ahead. However, there is a collateral consequence of this action that the narcissism then harnesses at a later juncture. It does actually create the ever-presence because the entitled nature of the narcissist to leave things behind and the lack of accountability means that the victim keeps having the reminders of seeing that fucking speedboat hanging around, blocking the light in the back garden, or the peculiar Smurf collection that the narcissist insisted on bringing round and leaving with you. So it creates ever-presence as a collateral consequence, but the unaware narcissist didn't intend for that to be the case. It just so happens it's off the back of the fact that they're entitled to come and leave their stuff and they've no accountability for clearing up after them, quite simply. The ever-presence affects you in the same way. You keep seeing those wretched Smurfs and being reminded of the narcissist. You keep looking out at the speedboat and you're reminded of the narcissist. You pick up the sweater or the jumper or the shirt and you're reminded of the narcissist. You pick up the underwear, you're reminded of that narcissist. So the narcissist that's unaware either leaves the item as a unconscious assertion of control in the moment, or just as a consequence of a sense of entitlement and a lack of accountability. The collateral consequence of either of those steps creates ever-presence, meaning that the narcissist is kept alive in your mind because you have these visual reminders. The narcissist is not consciously or unconsciously creating a pretext. Remember, you're dealing with a lesser or mid-range narcissist. What then happens is, at a later juncture, you come up on the narcissist radar. Let's say it's 8 months later. And you have entered the sixth sphere of influence. You've just popped into the narcissist's head. And therefore, the narcissism asks this question: is Katrina under control? The narcissism answers in the unconscious, no. We have no information about her. We don't know whether she's under control or not. Therefore, we have to assume that she's not. First law of narcissism applies. All appliances must be brought under control and kept under control. Therefore, the narcissism ascertains, can we utilize the first assertion of control, which is direct, i.e. hoovering, and determines, through an application of the Hoover execution criteria, that yes, the hoover can take place. It then signals to the narcissist, contact Katrina and explain that you've left your jumper there, can you come and get it? This unaware narcissist did not purposefully or unconsciously intend for that pretext to be created when he left the jumper behind. It is a collateral consequence of him either handing it over to assert control in the moment or just leaving it around, lying around as a sense, out of his sense of entitlement. But what happens is, when Katrina comes on the radar months later, the narcissism determines that she has to be hoovered to get control. And therefore, it's like the narcissism opens this trunk and looks inside and says, have we got anything that we can use to assert control now that was from the past to enable us to hoover Katrina more effectively? In the same way that when you're having an argument with the narcissist will bring up something from the past that you did, or even if you didn't do, to control you in the now. What the narcissism does is it suddenly recalls, there's a jumper left at Katrina. We can use the existence of that jumper which was left in the past as a pretext in the now to control Katrina in the now. Accordingly, when a narcissist leaves behind property, it is important for you to understand that the reasoning and motivation behind it varies dependent upon the type of narcissist you're dealing with. Greater or ultra, it has been handed over because the narcissist purposely intended to assert control in the moment, and purposefully intended to create ever-presence, and purposefully intended to create a pretext that could be used at some future point. For the majority of narcissists, which are lesser or mid-range, the narcissist either left the jumper as a subconscious assertion of control in the moment, or just left it out of a sense of entitlement, and then the collateral consequence of that action is ever-presence is created, but it wasn't deliberate, and it creates something that can be used at a later date by essentially bringing up the past. Many people think that every single narcissist does this deliberately to give them a reason to come back and hoover at a later juncture. It's not the case. That's only where you have a conscious narcissist. An aware narcissist. The unaware one, it is simply a bonus, a collateral consequence. And that is why narcissists leave property with you. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.